Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Sixers. I guess we could call this a trade deadline primer. We're recording this about a month out of the trade deadline, and I'm joined with Paul Hudrick, editor in chief of Liberty Ballers. Paul, we are recording this after the 3-point win over the Wizards yesterday, so we actually got to see a trade target that you have piqued interest about. So I feel like because I do as well, and I was streaming last night and I was kind of blown away by this guy. Talk to me about Jared Butler and also talk to me about what you think the mindset should be for the Sixers heading into February.
Yeah, I guess I'm half joke. I mean, probably less than half. I'm probably like 25% joking when I talk about Jared Butler. Jared Butler's a guy who was like awesome in college at Baylor. He was an incredible player. Just he had the health scare coming into the draft. That's why he winds up falling into the second round. I mean, he's a guy who would have been probably a lottery pick if the medical red flags didn't come up. He could have come out a year sooner and probably been a first round pick. He was that good. But yeah, and then injuries have just kind of plagued him since he's been in the NBA. But he can play. I mean, you saw it. He's just a good basketball player. And the fact that he is on a two-way contract on the worst team in the NBA is criminal. Because he can play. Yeah, if I'm the Sixers, I'm Daryl Morey. I for sure would put in a phone call just to see like would they be willing to talk and like just for. I mean, I can't imagine you can demand a lot if you're the Wizards. But clearly they're going to want something. So yeah, it's like he really. I mean, he's 24 years old. I guess theoretically he could fit into their plans, but I don't know. But I think what it all speaks to, Drew, like to answer the second part of your question is like, man, they really need guard help.
Mhm.
It's amazing how much losing Jared McCain has it's killed them. I don't think it's hyperbolic at all to say they probably beat the Kings and they probably beat the Suns if they have Jared McCain. Um, the offense down the stretch was an absolute disaster against the Kings. Tyrese Maxey and Paul George did not handle the traps very well. You have another ball handler, an offensive threat in Jared McCain out there that could have made all the difference in those last 3.5 minutes. Could have helped. They probably don't. They probably don't give up a 15-0 run if Jared McCain is on the floor. And then I think of the Suns game. Look, that first half might have been the best defensive first half the Sixers have put together all season.
Mhm.
And then it might have been the worst offensive half they put together all season. So just to have a threat like that, like McCain, what made McCain so valuable for them was that, I mean, the team was never really healthy when he was healthy, but when the team was healthy, he could hunt threes, and that could be his role, right? Just an off-ball mover, some little supplementary ball handling stuff, maybe the occasional DHO or pick and roll with Joel, but more of like a fourth or fifth option, which he could do that. But then he could also on nights like could you imagine, Drew, last night if Jared McCain were playing last night and he's going up against Bub Carrington, who was picked 2 picks ahead of him?
Mhm.
Jared McCain might have dropped 40 points last night. Like, so
Yeah.
I just think about stuff like he would have been. He's so good from the element of when they are down guys and they need more scoring. He is a perfect guy to have in there that can just fill it up when they really need it. So, I think trade deadline. Just talking about this season for this year,
Mhm.
if they want to stay in this thing, if they seriously want to compete and try to win basketball games and try to get the best seed possible, they need a guard. Like they flat out do. You look at the metrics, they all will tell you. When Maxey is off the floor and it's the other backup guards in the game, it is not good. It is just not good. They need another dynamic guard.
Mhm.
With respect to Kyle Lowry and Reggie Jackson, who are the veteran guys who can really run the offense, who are calming presences, who can they can make an open shot here and there. They need someone dynamic. They need a guy who can handle the ball, who can create offense, who can work out of the pick and roll, finish at the rim, hit a lob. Like honestly, exactly what you saw Jared Butler do last night. That's the kind of backup guard they need, and they just don't have it. So that's where it would start for me. And then the other thing that, it's been talked about now, Jake Fisher has brought this up a whole bunch, and I really trust Jake's reporting because he's done such a terrific job since he's become, one of the more, prominent insiders in the NBA. the idea of them looking for a guy on a rookie contract who his current team has not extended, who maybe fits the 4, who could be a long-term starting 4. So that's a trade that you're not making for this year necessarily. Sure, like a guy could help you this year, but that's a trade you're looking at a guy that you could maybe then turn around and sign long-term. So I think as I see it going into the deadline, those are the two biggest things. You need another guard of some kind that if you're looking to compete this year. And then I would not be surprised to see Daryl Morey dip his toes in the waters with some a guy, like I said, like I mentioned, a rookie scale kind of 4 that can play now and help them now and start at the 4 now, but then also be a really good potential building block piece for when Joel Embiid starts taking a step back and Paul George starts taking a step back, and then it becomes Maxey and McCain's team.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's where I would land on the two kind of main points of need positions, with a guard and then maybe further down the line a forward. So basing off of Brian Toporik's article of the packages surrounding KJ Martin, because he got signed for what was pretty much a almost trade exception type contract. So I have a list of some of the guys that he listed out that would fit into and be able to be traded for KJ Martin just in and of himself. And then he also has a package for KJ and Eric Gordon. And he also has these larger packages that would be for players worth $12 million or more. So what I'm interested in doing is listing out the names of the guys in each phase, and you pick out 2, 1, 2, 3 of your favorites that, and a lot of them are either a guard or a forward, that you think would be acquirable, the best fit, however angle you want to go.
Sounds
so
good.
For trades for just KJ Martin, who is making just under $8 million this year, you have guys like Malik Beasley, Kenrich Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder, Malik Beasley of the Detroit Pistons, Nick Richards of the Charlotte Hornets, Drew Eubanks of the Utah Jazz, Jonathan Kuminga of the Warriors, Santi Aldama of the Memphis Grizzlies, and Cam Whitmore of the Houston Rockets. And if there's anybody else I leave out that you think can fit in those brackets, go for it. But yeah, whatever way you want to go.
Yeah. So I mean, when I look at kind of let's like attack the 4s first. Out of those guys that you could just trade KJ for straight up plus draft compensation, Aldama would be pretty high on my list. Do the Grizzlies can kind of afford to play chicken with him a little bit, because I think the one thing that people lose sight of, and it's happening in the Gershon Yabusele stuff, like it's very easy for all of us to say, oh man, the Sixers are going to lose him. Someone's going to give him a bag. Okay, who's going to give him a bag? Because with the CBA, with the second apron, it's not that easy. There's not that many right now. I believe as of right now, the Brooklyn Nets are the only team projected to have cap space next season.
Yeah.
Other teams can join them. They can make some moves and join them in that regard. But right now, that's it. The Brooklyn Nets. And with respect to a Gershon Yabusele, I don't think that's the kind of guy the Brooklyn Nets are going to be. They're not going to be targeting a 29-year-old combo big. I don't think that's what they're going to be looking for. Maybe, but I doubt it. But I say all that to say, so like with Aldama, I could see the Grizzlies just saying, you know what? He's got a role for us right now. He's playing pretty well. Why don't we just let him hit the open market? And if he does, let's dare a team to kind of try to sign him. And if not, if they do, we can they can offer him more money because he is their free agent. They'll have bird rights, whatever. So I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know what the point would be for the Grizzlies to say, okay, if you give us this many first round picks, we'll give you Santi Aldama. Because that's a guy like fits the need perfectly. 4 with great size, good rebounder, good passer, good shooter, can slash a little bit, pretty versatile defensively. Like he would be an ideal fit. Kuminga is interesting. I know a lot of people aren't as high on Kuminga as I am. I really like him. I would have long-term, not maybe necessarily long-term concerns, but I guess more immediate concerns of how him and Kelly Oubre would fit the floor together, because Kuminga offers some of this. It's kind of a similar skill set in that neither guy is a great shooter, but both guys can get downhill and apply rim pressure. I would say Kuminga is actually already probably a better passer and playmaker than Kelly at this point in their careers. And Kuminga is still young. I think, defensively, you're going to get some of the similar things. I think Kuminga is an outstanding fit for what Nick Nurse wants to do: be long, be athletic, force turnovers, and get out and play in transition. Could play in a dunker spot next to Embiid. I think there's a lot to like about Kuminga. Again, price tag, and then you'd have to commit money to him. So that's I'm hesitant there. Whitmore is very interesting to me because this is a guy who has first round talent that Daryl Morey kind of already hinted that they tried to trade up for on draft night. They have a logjam. They already have Jabari Smith as their starting four. They're bringing in Tari Eason, who's been awesome this year. You can't play everybody, basically. That's what it comes down to. And Whitmore might find himself to kind of be the odd man out, but he's more of a combo forward. He's got the 3-4 versatility, and still young. He definitely has some work to do as far as seeing the floor better and all that, but he can go get a bucket. He's crazy athletic. His defense has grown. So again, that's a move that you're probably not making for this year. A guy like Whitmore, he might not help you out a ton. He might, but I think that's more of a long-term kind of projection kind of guy, which again, next to Tyrese Maxey, next to Jared McCain, you add Cam Whitmore into that mix. That's pretty intriguing. Remind me the other guys you mentioned. I'm sorry, I'm already blanking on them.
All right, so you mentioned Kuminga, Aldama, and Whitmore. You also have Nick Richards, Kenrich Williams, and Drew Eubanks for the bigs.
Yeah, I'm a big Nick Richards guy. I'm a big fan of his. I love his game, but I don't think he would be an upgrade over Andre Drummond, but I don't think he's a big enough upgrade over Andre Drummond where I'd want to give up KJ Martin for him. Yeah, same with Eubanks. And I actually I'm not even sure if Eubanks would be that big of an upgrade. So I wouldn't even. That's a guy that I probably would be flat out on. If the Hornets would be interested in Drummond and a pick for Nick Richards, I would probably entertain that. Yeah. And then Jesus, there's so many names. I'm blanking already.
Kenrich Williams.
And Kenrich Williams. So I like Kenrich a lot. He's pretty interesting, and I don't think it would take a ton to get him from OKC. The shot kind of comes and goes, but another guy who's a versatile defender, can play the 3, can play the 4, tall, long, has a little bit of a bag. He can actually put the ball on the floor a little bit and do some things. He might be a tad redundant when you already have Oubre, you have Paul George, you have Caleb Martin. You have guys that kind of already fit that mold that are going to get a lot of minutes. So I just don't know 100% where he would fit in. But Kenrich is interesting. I wouldn't say no to that, but I'm not, depending on what you're giving. Okay, because I got to be honest with you too. I don't know how big of an upgrade he is over KJ. If I'm being really honest, and the Thunder might actually KJ would probably flourish with the Thunder.
Yeah,
he'd probably be a really good fit there. So, that's a guy I probably lean towards out on Kenrich Williams.
And then last one for that bracket is Malik Beasley, the only guard.
Yeah, so I mean, for sure, I think Malik Beasley would be kind of what we already touched on. Just he's a bomber. He's taking 9 threes a game, hitting over 40%. He's really shooting the basketball well. To have a guy like that can do that, they could absolutely use a player like that. With the way Detroit's playing, Detroit's one game over 500 now. I mean, the way they're playing, I'm not sure what you'd have to offer them to get Malik Beasley. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking you'd have to give him a first for him, I'm probably out there. So I just think that's probably not going to be a match because I think where Detroit is, you'd probably have to overpay to get him out of there.
All right. And then if we pair Eric Gordon with KJ Martin's contract, you can get obviously some more players, or not some more players, but players at a higher salary. That would include guys like Larry Nance Jr., Maxi Kleber, Chris Boucher, Cody Martin, George Niang, and Luke Kennard.
All right. How about this? You give me the name and I'm going to tell you what I think.
All right. Well, we just hit a guard with Beasley, so let's start with Luke Kennard.
I'd be interested just because he's such an outstanding shooter. And the Sixers need shooting. I mean, they're still one of the worst 3-point shooting teams as far as volume and percentage. To add a guy like that to the mix to play off of Joel Embiid and Paul George and Maxey, even if he doesn't wind up being a fully playoff viable guy, I think two things. I think one, he can really help you a ton. Again, just talking about like a game like last night, man, it would have been nice to have a guy that could jack up 10 threes and maybe make half of them last night. Would have been good to have for the Sixers. And then in the playoffs, maybe he's not a guy that is cemented into a rotation spot in the playoffs, but in certain moments, right? Like if you just really need shooting, you throw him out there, you give him a couple of minutes, see if he can get cooking. So I would have interest in Kennard. I wouldn't give up a ton of draft compensation to get him. Because again, actually, I think KJ Martin would be a really good fit on the Grizzlies.
Mhm.
So I probably wouldn't give up a ton draft compensation wise to get Luke Kennard, but that's a player I would be interested in and a thought I would entertain.
Yeah, and I feel like he would help out with the Jared McCain size hole in terms
Yeah,
of shooting, right?
for
So,
sure.
all right. Well, we know George Niang and what he can kind of bring, so we'll hop over him for now. Cody Martin, the twin of Caleb Martin. What do you think about a family reunion?
I'm not against it. Because Cody, it's funny because so Cody, for people that don't know, obviously they are twins. Cody's more of like a point guard. Like that's more of Cody's game,
Mm,
whereas Caleb's more of a wing. So to bring in Cody as a guy that is like, supplanting Lowry and Reggie Jackson, I'd have some interest there. He
yeah.
could certainly play with Tyrese Maxey. And because he has that size, you don't defensively, you wouldn't lose much with him and Maxey in the backcourt together. Offensively, he does have some stuff off the bounce. The shooting's a concern. I mean, I think he's at 33% this year. He's had some injuries, and so the last 2 years he's barely played, and so his shooting numbers, I think it's hurt his offensive game.
Mm,
I think one thing about Cody Martin people don't realize, his on-ball defense is like elite. He is an outstanding on-ball defender. I will never forget last year when Charlotte was in town and he played against Maxey, and for the better part of the game, shut Maxey down. Like he was awesome. So again, I wouldn't want to give up. It would have to almost basically be KJ Martin, Eric Gordon, and like a second. Like I'm not giving up a
mhm.
ton to get Cody Martin. Maybe you get a bigger trade and you get Nick Richardson here, and maybe that's you finagle that. But I would say for Cody, I like the player, and I think the player would be good, but I don't know that the trade would make sense.
Yeah, I think I'm understanding you because, like I feel like if McCain were to come back in that sense, it could jam it up, but would be interesting seeing both the twins playing on the same team. That would be fun. All right, what about I've always felt like this guy will become a Sixer one day. Chris Boucher, is he still in the Raptors?
Yep,
Right?
yep. Chris
Yeah,
Boucher on the Raptors.
somehow.
I'm out on Boucher because he's just I don't I think he had like one or two like good outlier shooting seasons and he's just never been able to replicate those.
Yeah.
And not only that, I think he's kind of like a combo big, and he's just not nearly Yabu Sele is just way better
Yeah.
to me, and I think he's a way better fit. So I get the Nurse connection and all that, and what Boucher can maybe bring defensively, but I'm probably out of Boucher.
And then last one for this bracket, how about Larry Nance Jr.?
The injury is the only reason I'm out on Larry Nance Jr. I
Mhm.
believe it's a right hand broken bone, so I mean that's going to be tough for him to come back from to be healthy enough after the trade deadline. But the player himself, man, Larry Nance Jr. would have been awesome. Because that's a combo big who you could play with Yabu Sele because he can hit a three, he can protect the rim a little bit. He's got great hands. He's one of the better bigs as far as stocks goes. Um, as obviously hyper athletic. So like him and Yabu would actually make a very interesting like backup front court. And both guys could theoretically play with Joel. So Nance would have been a guy I would have had a lot of interest in, but and I would say too, like Nance would have been a guy who, if the season were going better, I would
Mhm.
have more
Yeah.
interest in, if that makes sense. But given where the Sixers are, given where he is with his injury, I probably lean towards being out.
All right. And if we package like Drummond, KJ, and Eric Gordon all together, get somewhere near $12 million. There's a bunch of different variations of that package, but it pretty much all has to include KJ at least. You can get players, and we've talked about when we played Portland, like Robert Williams the second. You would talk about how kind of it would help out the center depth a lot, and I think he would be a major upgrade over Andre Drummond. But I do like some other names on here, especially on teams that are not doing well. We just played against Jonas Valanciunas. I think he will be on a contender by the end of the season. I think any team who needs a center would be willing to do it. But talk to me about Herb Jones of the New Orleans Pelicans. It would take a lot, I'm sure, to get him here, but he's amazing. I mean, that would be incredible.
So I'll preface it by saying the New Orleans Pelicans would be incredibly stupid to trade Herb Jones. Like, incredibly. Like, Daryl Morey would literally have to say, like, here are 4 first-round picks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's the only way. If I'm the Pelicans, I'm even picking up the phone. So that, with that said, like, I don't see it being realistic. But holy shit, I mean, Herb Jones. Oh my goodness. I mean, he would be an absolutely sensational fit. One of, if not the best perimeter defender in the entire NBA. His shooting's down this year, but when they were healthy last year, he shot like over 40% from 3. He's a good passer, really good instincts, a smart basketball player on both sides of the ball, plays his ass off, plays very hard. He's tall, he's long. He'll get in for a rebound. Like, he would be an absolute dream fit for this basketball team. But I see, again, man, if the Pelicans even entertained, he's also on arguably the greatest contract in the NBA with the new CBA, a absolutely sensational contract. So with all that said, an absolute perfect fit, incredible player. I see absolutely no path to actually the Sixers being able to trade for him.
Well, I'll hit you with a fitting follow-up then. Who would get a larger return? Zion in a trade or Herb Jones?
That's a good question. I mean, it literally might be Herb Jones just because of Zion's. And I love, like, Zion's such. If I were a team, I would absolutely take a shot on Zion. If I were a team that needed a star, he's a guy I would absolutely take a run at. But he can't stay healthy, and it's just so rough. So I mean, it might actually be Herb Jones, which is I can't believe that's the case, but it might.
Yeah, I feel like Herb Jones is the perfect player for this.
He's making like $10 million, like $10 million a year. That's bench player money. Like,
there are more dreams of guys like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, some guys that are just too expensive that have been thrown around. Brian listed out guys like Zach LaVine, Cam Johnson, Kuzma, and maybe Herb Jones just for the draft capital being too expensive. There's some other guys in here that I just don't think that these teams are going to trade, like Naz Reid, Onyeka Okongwu, or and maybe Brandon Clark or Kelly Olynyk could get moved. Do any of those interest you at all?
Olynyk, again, probably would have interested me more if they didn't have Yabusele. Although, again, it's the same thing as Nance. I mean, they could play together. They can handle, be a 4-5 kind of front court combo. And both guys, again, could play next to Joel Embiid. So Olynyk is in there. What were a couple of the other names? I'm sorry.
Okongwu, Naz Reid, Brandon Clark.
Yeah, I mean, Naz Reid would be an absolutely sensational fit, but I don't see Minnesota entertaining that right now. I mean, maybe they have some cap issues. Did Brian mention DiVincenzo as well? Because DiVincenzo is another guy. I mean, that's talk about a dynamic guard. I mean, that's he would be another guy that would just be a sensational fit here. But
and you would love to see New York in the playoffs.
My goodness, that would be a whole lot of fun. And Dante plays. I mean, a guy gritty, plays hard, can hit an open shot, can create an open shot, does all the little things. So he would be another dynamite fit. Did he have Keegan Murray on the list?
I believe he did.
Yeah, Keegan Murray's in there somewhere. So Keegan Murray's a guy who I like a lot. I just think he's just in a tough spot. That Sacramento team
Yeah.
is a mess. That's a guy, maybe you buy him on the low. Maybe you don't have to give up a ton draft capital wise. And that's a guy that, again, fits the mold of, he can fit right now into this starting five as a 4, and then he could be a future piece alongside Maxey and McCain. So, and I think money wise, I think you'd really only have to give up KJ. I think actually KJ for Keegan plus draft picks would work. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what Monty McNair would be looking for draft compensation wise, but Keegan Murray would be a guy I would be very interested in to see what he would look like with a change of scenery. I would be very curious.
All right. Do you have any other guards that I feel like are out there? Because
I have a list, Drew. So let me see. Let me consult my list and see where. One guy, Trey Mann, would be another one that would be interesting me. He's just a bucket getter. That's really all he is. But he can do it. He can go get you a bucket, and you could really use a guy that can just go get you a bucket. Keon Ellis, talking about another guy on Sacramento. Keon Ellis is a really interesting guy, 6'6", but he's more of a guard, decent shooter, decent player, kind of just a winning player. So that's a guy I like. Kind of like lower end ones that are just like kind of, I guess, fit more into like the Jared Butler type guys, like Trey Jones from San Antonio, Ayo Dosunmu from the Bulls, Javon Carter from the Bulls. Those are kind of guys that aren't, they're not gonna. You can maybe get them for a second and pennies on the dollar, but they can just give you okay guard play, which they could use just some okay guard play. I'll give you another name that I'm not sure he would be available. I'm not sure that the Portland would do it, but Tumani Kamara from Portland. He is a really interesting guy. Again, really versatile, can make an open shot. Right now I think he's just being asked to do too much with a bad Portland team. But if you make him just a pure role player, I think that's a guy where if you're looking for like the Kelly Oubre or Gershon Yabusele of this trade, the trade market, Kamara could be a guy who could fit that because he's on a minimum contract, playing for a bad team. I don't know. Again, don't know what. I don't even know if Portland would entertain it, but he would be a guy that would have some interest in me.
Awesome. Do you think there's any chance the Sixers are? I mean, I wrote down their first round pick protections for the next few years. I mean, they would have to fall in the top 4, either the top 6 this year, the top 4 next year, the top 8 the next 2 years after that. Do you think we're going to see the Sixers make a first round draft pick before 2029, which is the first time they have like a real one?
That's a good question. The answer might be no, because this is the way the roster is built to win, and they're probably not going to keep their pick next year just because of the protection of that. That's probably going to convey to OKC. So I don't know. It depends. I guess it depends on what picks they have to give up and who they actually target. Having the Clippers pick is nice because then that might be a year they actually do pick. I think that's what 2028 the Clippers pick. So maybe 2028 they make a first round pick because they have 2 of them that year. So maybe they only use 1 in a trade, but but no, it's fair to wonder. And look, Daryl Morey he's going to lean towards being aggressive. He's going to make all in moves when it makes sense. Now, I will say that conversely, a lot of people thought he was going to trade this year's first round pick, right? He winds up taking Jared McCain, and it winds up being an outstanding decision. I remember on draft night, he said there was an interesting player that someone had offered them for that pick, and he turned it down. And guess what? Damn good thing he did, because I don't know who that player would have been, but it wouldn't have been Jared McCain. So, it would have been like maybe Dorian Finney-Smith or something, which great. He would have been a nice addition, but he would not have been Jared McCain. So, the Sixers have drafted so well. That's just weird too.
Yeah. I was going to say it's been rare, but when they do draft in the first round,
they got McCain, they got Bona, who I love both of those guys. Then they undrafted, they get Edwards, who's getting minutes right now. And even last year, they found Ricky Council off the heap, off the undrafted heap. So, credit to their scouting department. They've done a really good job finding guys. So if they do happen to get picks, I think they'll probably do pretty well with them. But With Daryl Morey, yeah, I tend to lean on the side of he'll be aggressive, but
Yeah.
if it's not out there, if it doesn't make sense, then I'll just keep him.
Last question. What percent chance do you think it is they don't make a trade? Maury is known for this, but do you think there
Yeah,
is
like
a chance they don't do something?
I think there's like a non-zero. Like he's gonna do something. I don't know what it's gonna be. It might not be some of the bigger trades we're talking about. Like it might not be a Kaminga or a Keegan Murray or Santi Aldama. It might not be like one of those guys, like even a Dante DiVincenzo, like a high profile guy. But he'll make moves. Like I can't imagine he's watching this team right now and not thinking, man, we need a guard. We could
Yeah.
really use a
It's
backup guard.
blatant.
And yeah, and they have so many. I mean, they have first round picks and second round picks at their disposal. Plenty of tradable contracts. Like they can find a guy that matches up for them salary wise, and that they can find like he'll find somebody. It might be akin to, and this is gonna give some Sixers fans PTSD, but it might be akin to the year they got George Hill, just like a solid
Yeah.
guard. Who they're not going to count on to play big minutes, but just a guy that can get them through stretches that can give them solid backup minutes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. We shall see what unfolds within the next few weeks. Thank you, as always, Paul, for joining me for the little bit of time today.
Of course.
Thank you guys for watching on YouTube. I will be back for a stream probably tomorrow. So make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to check out libertyballers.com and make sure to check us out on playback for our streams. So I will catch you guys later. Thank you again, Paul. See ya.
Got it.